All right, last but not least, we have the EML or Europe and Mena League, which starts June 16th and will be concluding on July 23rd. This is probably the league that saw the most interesting roster changes post reload, of course. And there were other roster changes pre reload, but if you watch any Siege esports recently, you probably know what they are. Um, but yeah, I'm very interested to see this European League stage. There's a lot of rookies coming in, particularly into EU, not only through Challenger League, but just joining some of the other more established teams as well. So yeah, let's get started. First, we are gonna talk about Wild. I do have them in my bottom spot, and it is only because I don't even think these guys are like bad or anything, but it's their first. They're all rookies, and it's their first tier one stage ever. And I'm sure they've been practicing against the tier one players for quite some time now. When they were playing in T2, so this is probably nothing really new to them. And this team definitely has nothing to lose being all rookies. And it's really impressive that this roster was also promoted from the Wild Academy, and they all got promoted to the main roster. So it's just kind of nice to see that an academy team get promoted to the main roster and then make the tier one league through Challenger League. Um, so yeah, I do have this team in the bottom spot just because I haven't really seen them play very much outside of Challenger League. They didn't get first place in that Challenger League either, but they played well enough to get the second place, which was all they needed to make the Pro League. So yeah, next, we are going to talk about Fnatic. Now, this roster has made another change post reload. The Jaxu has already been dropped. Probably, I don't know. He wasn't on the team very long. Maybe a month or two, maybe 3 months. But he's been replaced by Wizard. Not to be confused with the other Wizard playing on NIP. They're two different people that share the same username. This wizard used to be a long time console player, and he was still playing console like 6 months ago. But you can put the console in air quotes because he was Zim. Um, I think anyone who's been around the console scene for a decent amount of time knows that he played mouse and keyboard on console for quite some time. So he's certainly not an inexperienced mouse and keyboard player by any means. So yeah, the rest of the team is still the same from Reload, but I just like this team just like hasn't shown me like anything good. Though I do think I'll be watching this team because I want to see, how Wizard does because Fnatic's making a big gamble here, picking up another rookie player after dropping um, one rookie already after Reload, which I just thought was kind of strange already. But yeah, I'm just like not convinced by what they're doing. I think Fnatic needs to, keep their roster consistent because I feel like if the players are always fearing for, their job security, that's going to weigh on them and it will affect performance. And that just, I feel like, is never good for any professional sports team, whether it's esports, sports, whatever. So yeah, next we have Mako Esports. They were the number one team from the Europe Mena Challenger League. This is a fully Italian roster, I believe, from the players to the coaching staff. We've seen a lot of these players before. Akwi, Lalo, and Teb, I believe, have all played separately in Pro League teams before. I know Lalo and Teb definitely have because they were both on Wild for sure. And they also have added Ghost Riddick recently. I believe it was in place of Gemini, and then Dora, who has been playing with this core of players for a long time. Um, and it's funny to see this a full Italian team under Mako finally qualify to this pro league as well because I feel like Mako have been around like forever in the scene. So they finally did it. Um, but they still have a lot to prove. I think there are a lot of European teams that are still better than them, but I definitely think this team could still farm some of the lower rated teams, including some of the ones that I have above them here. Okay, next we have Wolves. They have made a roster change as well after Reload. They let go of Oscar um, in place of Krex, another console player similar to Wizard. I believe Krex and Wizard played um, a good amount together when they were both on console. They're both from the UK. So I'm not sure if Krex was mouse as well. Um, he might have been on console. So yeah, I'm another experienced mouse player. Though I thought this pickup was really interesting because unlike Wizard, Wizard had the highest rating of any, well, tied for the highest rating of any player in Challenger League, while Krex, you know, didn't really have that great of a rating in the Challenger League because him and Wizard and Krex played on the same Challenger League team before they went their separate ways and joined Fnatic and Wolves respectively. So very peculiar change. So yeah, and they've also added Reich as an analyst recently as well. So interesting to watch Wolves this stage because I think the addition of Krex could be very interesting. I think it's a pretty big gamble though because I think it'll be either pretty good or just like not work out at all. So yeah. Next up we got BDS. They haven't made any changes since they've swapped out their roster to Falcons. So now they have this new team that they played at Reload with. They were all right, but they weren't like anything crazy. I mean, they got eliminated by FearX at Reload, and that's not really like something embarrassing to say anymore. FearX are actually quite good now, but they still did get eliminated from the event before making playoffs. And again, this team is kind of similar to, I would compare like Black Dragons in EU, where currently they're in a situation where they've picked up like a lot of the scraps from other European teams, and they kind of just all put them together and kind of hoping it works because they got Virtue, who was last on Secret. They got Robbie, who was previously with Falcons. P4 and Lasmu were with Wolves, and then Freck came from Wild, and then they also have the Wolves coaching staff as well as the previous Falcons coaching staff. So definitely a weird mix of players. I definitely think they're good enough to get some wins against some of the lower rated teams here, but I don't know if they'll be good enough to contest against the top echelon of teams. And EU's kind of weird. When I say top echelon teams, there's like one team. I'm really looking for another team to, you know, be good, like really good. So next up we have VP. This is certainly one of those teams I was talking about, that team that I know can be really good because we all know these players. It's still the same VP roster, and we know how good they can be, especially when they actually make events. They always usually show up and play pretty good. The only change they have as of recent, but it like isn't a super new change, is Karzeka is now their head coach instead of Zeka. And if you know Karzeka used to play with this roster as well before as a player when they won both the Pro League final and the Raleigh Major. So yeah, Virtus Pro is definitely one of the teams that I could consider for making one of those top spots, but they always just like, half the time they just don't show up for the online play. Sometimes they're really bad. And that, even though I know how good they can be, it just doesn't work out some stages. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for this legacy team to kind of make a resurgence and contend for one of the top spots in the league. Next up, we have G2, probably the team that has seen the most attention out of any team during the short off season here between Reload and the stage 1 of 2025. They made the probably most exciting change of any team in a while. Probably the most hype change since, I don't know, Spoit probably joined Pro League, or maybe even Bolo. They have dropped Uno and they have added Stompin to the roster. And I think if anybody watches Jinxie or is familiar with like North American Challenger League at this point, uh, you will know who Stompin is. One of the most hyped up players we've seen in a long time, and just recently turned 18 this past February, I believe. G2 are making a big move here, swapping out Uno, who I think is a pretty important leadership figure in the roster. And I'm making this video at the time. G2 haven't announced this change, but everyone knows this is happening. Even Stompin's Ubisoft Connect name is Stompin G2. So I think everybody knows this is happening. And this announcement will probably, I'm assuming it will either release, they'll do it probably the day of CGX comes out. So June 10th. Or they'll do it like, literally the first day of the stage. So one of those days, but everybody knows it's happening at this point, and I'm not waiting any longer to talk about it. So this team I'm definitely going to be probably watching every game because I just want to see how they play, because I just, it's hard for me to see the fit here. Yeah, Stompin's a really good player. I think if anybody's watched him play, I think we know that. But the fit with the roster, like moving to a different country on the other side of the planet at 18 years old, um, and you're playing with all these different players from different regions, and you have this completely different style of play. So very, very just questionable with the fit here, but business wise for G2, very good move. A very going to be very popular team. Not that they weren't already, but they're going to be even more popular because they're going to have all the Stompin' fans following them now as well, and probably buying their merch. So yeah, I think it's a very good money move for G2. They only had to sacrifice Nico and Monacy to Falcons to get Stompin' in. So yeah, very interested to see G2 this stage. Next, I have Gen G. This is probably my biggest wild card up here. I kind of want to believe, I was believing in this roster for a while. I wanted them to be good when they were under Ents last year, and they just weren't very good. Um, but going into this stage, they have made one roster change after a year of just not really doing too much. And with that roster change, they added Deadshot to the roster. I believe in place of Rykos, and they recently won the Malta Land Series, just before, or was it just after SI? I can't remember. It was around that time, anyways. I can't remember if it was March. It was in March or early February. But anyways, they ended up winning that LAN, and I haven't seen them play since. And of course, they were still under Ents when they won that LAN, but it was like, the first time I've actually seen them, play pretty good, and where they were kind of living up to the potential that I thought they had for a while. So I'm putting this team up here. It's a full French roster. If you like the French, this is the team to root for. Um, and I definitely think they're going to be big underdogs this stage. And I want to see them do well. So yeah. Next up, we have Secret in my number 2 spot. They added Mowgli and Noah in the offseason in place of Virtue and Groovy. Besides that, they kept the core of Savage, Doom, and Adrian from the previous years. And they are another team here looking to contend for that number 1 spot in the league. Secret and VP are probably my, 2 teams that I consider most likely to have the potential to contend for that number 1 spot. So yeah, and at Reload, they had kind of a weird event where they had some like really good wins, but also some really bad losses. So like they played like an incredible game against Dark Zero, and then the other games, there was another game where they just got like completely smoked in as well. Though I can't remember what that was. I remember them. I remember the very dominant win against DZ, I believe. Or no, it was M80, not Dark Zero. It was M80. I was like, it was a very impressive win. So yeah. I definitely think Secret will be gunning for that top spot in the league. And then last but not least, of course, we have Falcons, best team in EU for the entirety of last year, no doubt about it. And same roster still. They didn't have an incredible reload event. They did make playoffs, but they lost to W7M in quarters in 3 maps after going up 1-0. So another classic Falcons choke at this point, you can call it. I just feel like Falcons are kind of like the org is cursed. I mean, this roster was kind of cursed, was definitely felt cursed last year, but I feel like the Falcons org being under Falcons just makes it even more cursed because Falcons are just like notorious for choking, and I feel like when you're under Falcons, I feel like a lot of people don't want to win just because I don't think there's a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of people that like the org Falcons, but there's definitely a lot of people that aren't a fan of Falcons like as an org, and like the how they do their make their esports teams and how much money they spend to basically poach the players off their favorite teams. So yeah, but I definitely think this roster for the foreseeable future has no reason not to be the number one team in EU still. And I really hope there are teams that can put up a good fight against Falcons because for the last year and so, we haven't really seen that in EU. So, yeah. Now, let's quickly talk about the stakes here. So, again, it's almost the same as Brazil and EU, except they actually have a prize pool amount here as well that they've given to us. Um, and there's one more Esports World Cup up spot up for grabs, even at fifth place. So I definitely think teams are going to be playing all out this stage because as long as you're in the top five, you get an EWC spot, which is huge. Um, but again, it's the same amount of SI points dispersion between the top five. And yeah, let me know what you think about EU, who you're excited to see play in EU, um, particularly between the teams with the new pickups, or if you're just excited to see your favorite team play or your favorite player play. And let me know what you think, how the teams are going to do in the league. And yeah, if you watch to the end of this, thank you and have a good rest of your day.